It's another battle for the Aggies, and the KSL Sports Zone has it covered. The Aggies head south to Las Vegas for a Saturday afternoon showdown against UNLV. Your home for all the play-by-play coverage of Aggie football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex, Kirry, Jeremiah Jensen. We are at RGS Exteriors here in West Jordan. RGS Exteriors, just give them a call if you want anything done on the outside of your home and make it look amazing. And they'll tell you what the trends are. Come on. Have them come out, take a look, lock in some prices right now.
There's nobody better. Nobody better here.
Come on, 801-280-3110. That's 801-280-3110. Let's kick off the hours we always do here. We've got the cut at the top of the program here. We're going to talk Baylor versus Utah. Let's get into it right now.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Doug Smith brings you this portion of the program. Doug Smith, of course, in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden. Nobody knows cars like Doug. Any of the car brands under their roof is going to be awesome because they'll take care of you. So go see the folks at the Doug Smith brand of dealerships. JJ, Baylor and Utah. This is an intriguing matchup because every game matters now just so much for the Utes. Obviously, it's not just about winning. Now everyone wants you to blow the doors off of everybody because the committee does take a look and go, how have you been doing? How have you won these games?
Yeah.
Give me some style points. And Utah, maybe this year more than we've seen, even during the Cam Rising years of winning the Pac-12 a couple of times, I think this team has more offensive flair than we've ever seen in my lifetime watching.
The numbers back it up. They haven't been this good offensively since 2004.
That's crazy.
And that matters. That stands out. And so there is a potential with this team, and I know they look back on those two losses and are frustrated by it, but there's still a lot to accomplish here. And there's a little bit of pressure on them to do it big, to maintain their place in the college football playoff rankings. But outside of the BYU and Texas Tech game, that's exactly what they've done. So there's no reason to think they can't.
Joining us right now on the program, somebody who covers this Baylor Bears team very well, Zach Smith for the Waco Tribune-Herald, joining us on the program. Zach, thanks for being on the program, man.
Hey, happy to be here. Always happy to talk about Baylor football. And, I know it hasn't been the best season for the Bears, but we're still keeping on down here.
Dave Aranda is one of those guys that, he's been on the hot seat the last couple of seasons at different points, and people going, oh, what's he doing this year? And last year he was able to finish off the season to where people said, no, this is the guy right now to lead this team. He came in with such high expectations, and admittedly, he's one of my favorite guys to talk to at the Big 12 Media Days. He's as even-keeled and level-headed as the coaches you'll find to talk to. What is it right now surrounding this Baylor program? Because the off-the-field stuff and some of the distractions on there, I feel like get in the way of trying to make sure you plan for a really, really tough Utah team coming into town.
Yeah, I think Dave Aranda, he's felt the pressure, I think, over the last 3 years, specifically that 2023 season when they won 3 games. He was close to losing his job after that, but then, like you mentioned, turned things around last year. So I certainly think he does a good job despite his demeanor, right? And he's not a Joey McGuire. He's not going to fire you up. He's not a lot of these rah-rah, running around on the sideline, jumping around. He's not that. He's the exact opposite of that. But I still think he has a connection with his team and with his players that just can't be denied. And that's why, it's very clear that this team – despite falling short of expectations in some regards and some of the distractions that have been plaguing this team off the field, even during their bye week, he does a good job of kind of being honest with them, with everybody on the roster, because there is a connection there, because he is a different guy. And he might not coach the way that we're used to and the way we're used to seeing, but I think his way of coaching, his way of connecting with players works for this team and this group specifically. And so all of those distractions, all of the pressure to win, they feel it, they see it, they hear it, but I do think that they do a good job of not letting it kind of affect them on a deeper level, if that makes any sense.
For fans here in Utah that aren't familiar with the situation, can you explain what's going on with Mack Rhoades, the athletic director, and that whole situation that's causing this distraction?
Certainly. It was a little under 2 months ago after the Arizona State game, which was the first game of the conference season. That was in late September. He got into a physical and verbal altercation, as it was reported by Outkick, with Michael Trigg, the star tight end, who since then has continued to see his name among the favorites for the Mackey Award as the best tight end. And and Mack also got into it verbally with an assistant coach after that game as well. And so there's just been a lot of, distraction is the best word, because it's just a weird situation. Mack Rhoades is always someone who has been on the sidelines. He watches most games from the sidelines. I know he and Dave Aranda have a very close relationship. He reviews film with him and all this, and so for this to happen and for him to get into it with a player, not just any player, a star player, a huge contributor to the team, it has caused lots of ripples here in Waco. And while it might not always pierce the Baylor bubble and make national news, it's just another kind of weird thing that's kind of going on.
What was the nature of it? What kind of what was reported as in my mind, I'm going, look, we've had outspoken ADs here in the state of Utah before, including, Mark Harlan, who was, last year was halfway on the field and got flagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty during the Utah BYU game. And we've had vocal guys before, but getting involved with practices and players and kind of being that close in front of that, what was the thing that surrounded that? Was that reported at all, or was it just something that he said something in passing to him, and then Michael Trigg takes some exception to it? How does an administrator get into that kind of a thing with a player?
Well, it all stems. That game against Arizona State was a night game at McLean Stadium. Baylor was wearing black jerseys. Everybody was in black, and then Michael Trigg had a brace on his shoulder. He had injured his shoulder a couple games prior, and he was wearing a bright yellow undershirt, and which it matched the numbers perfectly. And if you weren't looking for it, he did stand out. He was the only one wearing a yellow undershirt, and as stupid as it sounds, that is reportedly what kind of set Mack off, is why are you wearing a yellow undershirt when everybody else is wearing dark? And so I would be hard pressed to say that is the reason, the reason. I'm sure there's more to the story we don't know. That can't be the one incident that caused this. There had to be more. Michael Trigg is an interesting figure here, because every week we talk to multiple players, at least 3 different players, and Dave Aranda. We have never, in 2 years since Michael Trigg has been here, we have never once talked to him.
Interesting.
And so I don't know if that's Baylor protecting Michael Trigg, or maybe they don't want him to say so. I don't know the answer to that question. But it stemmed from that incident of Michael Trigg wearing yellow when everybody else was wearing black, but it's hard for me to believe that that's the entire story, which we just don't know yet.
I was going to ask, though, too, on top of all of this, Mack Rhoades is getting a ton of attention because he's the guy who's, the figurehead for the College Football Playoff Committee, obviously, and every week he's got tough questions to answer. How much has that contributed to the fact that people are looking at this thing and going, Mack Rhoades, what's going on, man? It feels like a very weird time to have him front and center and representing the university, while he's kind of not, because he's also trying to be part of the the spokesperson for the committee.
Right. You're spot on. I think that the timing of this coming out and the people that I think wanted it out, I think it's it's purposeful when it came out.
Right.
I think there are certainly people here in Waco that, we talk about Dave Aranda's job a lot, but there are people here in Waco that also want Mack Rhoades out because, the whole thing with Kim Mulkey, a women's basketball coach, was a legend here, right? She won national championships, and it kind of felt like, her and Mack did not always see eye to eye because he came in after she was here and already had established herself as a legend. I'm not saying that's the one thing, but that's the most notable thing where there's a whole bunch of people who love Kim Mulkey, what she stands for, what she did, and all of that, and Mack is kind of the antithesis to that. And so now that you're seeing football, and football is kind of falling off, and Dave Aranda is a different cat, and he's kind of Mack's guy, and all of this, like, those detractors are still there. And I'm not saying, so I just think that there are a lot of people here that do not like Mack Rhoades for one reason or another, and there are people that kind of want him to see him gone just as much as they want to see Dave Aranda gone.
So thank you. Now we get all that, and then you combine that with obviously some on-field frustrations. I can't imagine fans were too thrilled about the TCU and Cincinnati losses, especially that 21-point loss to Cincinnati. Did they right anything against UCF in a 30-3 win and then the bye week, or are those problems that they had in those games still looming?
I mean, that UCF game was the best that Baylor had played all season, no doubt. I think UCF came into the game averaging over 200 yards on the ground, and Baylor held them to 74. It was like, where did this rush defense come from? Baylor has had one of the worst rush defenses in the country, really, up until that game. And so it seemed like they had righted some things. Then the offense, again, got back kind of going to where they were earlier in the season there. Though that Cincinnati game, that TCU game, there were times when Sawyer Robertson just didn't look kind of in a rhythm. And so they did right things against UCF, but I still think the huge caveat there is, it was UCF. Like Utah is a completely different animal than UCF. Even Cincinnati and TCU, I think, are completely different and, in my opinion, better teams than UCF. But, I mean, it was as righting a ship as you can get against a team like UCF, in my opinion. So whether they carry that through the bye week is to be determined. Certainly the last bye week, headed into that TCU game, they did not, because they won 2 games leading into the last bye week and then lost to TCU like they did. So, yes, they kind of righted a ship against UCF, but I truly don't know if I have faith that they will carry that through into the Utah game.
Speaking of the Utah game, obviously this is a Utah team that's going in a direction that is very positive for them after their 2 losses to both BYU and Texas Tech. Those are 2 extremely good teams in this conference, and yet Utah right now looks like it's as strong as anybody in the entire country, really, if you stack them up. What do you think this Utah team brings to Waco that the Bears should be a little bit wary about?
I mean, I look at the ability to run the ball is just incredible. I think, what is Utah? The 3rd best rush offense in the country, behind a couple military academies, right?
Right, yeah.
And like Baylor just does not have the horses in their front 7 to slow down anyone. And with Utah's offensive line and, Dampier and Wayshawn Parker has looked really good the last couple games. So, like, I just think that there's the opportunity. Utah has the opportunity to really embarrass Baylor and just run up and down the field on them and just kind of lean on their offensive line and just run the ball. And that if I'm Baylor, like, I'm selling out to stop the run just about every time and, seeing what happens, because that's been their bugaboo all season, aside from the UCF game, is stopping the run. So that if I'm Baylor, I'm terrified of Utah's run game.
On the other side of the ball, Sawyer Robertson's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He has a lot of respect here. BYU and Utah have had to face him. Kyle Whittingham talked about him this week. His numbers speak for himself. 26 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 62% completion rate. How come the production in the pass game hasn't added up to the results and wins they've had? And what's been holding that offense back from – obviously they're getting the yardage, but they haven't been able to turn that into wins at the level that they'd prefer.
Right. I mean, I think that the offense, for the most part, has been living up to its end of the bargain. You know, okay. There's certainly been some low spots. I think, like I mentioned before, the offense wasn't really going against TCU or Cincinnati. Certainly in that game against Arizona State, where that earlier in the season, it did not kind of pull its weight. But I think the offense, for the most part, has been doing its job. And Sawyer Robertson is kind of the perfect quarterback for Baylor and Jake Stavelow's offensive system, and he's just the leader that everybody wants to follow. But the problem is the offense needs to be perfect almost every single game, and that's not necessarily possible. I mean, you hope it's possible, but it needs to be perfect all the time because the defense has been so bad. And so when you're getting scored on every single possession, I mean, the offense, like I said, has to be perfect. You're going for it on fourth down more than any team in the nation because you're coming from behind because you need all these points to overcome your leaky defense. And so I don't think that Baylor's problems this year stem from the offensive side of the football. It's Sawyer Robertson and all the weapons he has there, Ashton Hawkins, Josh Cameron, Michael Trigg, certainly. They've been doing their job. It's the defense that has been so just leaky that has not been doing very good.
Well, it's an interesting matchup, of course, this weekend, and teams that feel like that they're headed in a different direction at this point, and yet at the same time, like Baylor is as talented. I mean, they're one of these teams that have been able to buck the trend when it comes to recruiting sometimes in the state of Texas and move a lot of guys into their direction from a long-term standpoint. Where does Baylor stand in the Big 12 when it comes to being able to compete in the state of Texas in recruiting?
They're, up there, right up there. I mean, certainly Texas Tech is above and beyond anybody here in the state in terms of, in the Big 12 in the state in terms of spending and recruiting. But TCU and Baylor, from what I've been told, are number 2 and 3 in the Big 12 in terms of NIL spending, and maybe in Texas here. And so they are keeping up with the Joneses there, and they have a elite recruiter in Keenan Hall, who's their running backs coach, and they have the best recruiting class that Dave Aranda has had since he's been here, and they are just bringing in the dudes. And Central Texas and Waco as a whole doesn't have a lot of big schools, but they have some really good dudes, and they've done a really, really good job this cycle keeping those guys at home. And there's a top receiver from right down the road, London Smith, who plays for University. He is just having an elite year for his high school, leading them to their first district title since, 1952, I think. And, Baylor in the recruiting realm is, just blazing new trails that Baylor hasn't seen since the Art Briles days.
It's wild, and then it's crazy because I think that you see that type of momentum, and it can all go away when you have everything with the transfer portal and how things work out. And if a coaching change happens, and if an athletic director change happens, all these things that kind of add up, and you go, how can you make sure that you keep all those dudes coming in on that pipeline? And so Zach Smith, he covers Baylor football for the Waco Tribune-Herald, and, of course, he'll be down there at McLean Stadium covering this game between Baylor and Utah this weekend. Zach, thanks so much for joining us, and we appreciate all the info. Awesome stuff, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
There you go, Zach Smith. Sounds problematic down there to be.
There's some issues down there.
But here's the thing that really stinks, is that when you get a program like Baylor, and this happens with really any program across the country who has relative success, a pretty decent NIL pool, right? And has all the excuses. Even recently, Baylor, think about Baylor having a Heisman Trophy winner within the past decade, having the success that they've had to be able to win some of those recruiting battles. For a long time, Baylor was, it was like they were better than Texas A&M. They're better than TCU. They're better than most of the schools there in the state, even Texas some years. And so you look and you go, I mean, when I was growing up, Baylor was a joke.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
And they've
they
turned
didn't really
that thing
emerge
around.
until the last, 10, 15 years?
And they're doing something that big boy football programs do, which is you have people in powerful positions who then turn on the current coaching staff. So what happens with that? And you heard it. Like, you got guys who are like, they wanted this Mack Rhoades story to come out, which, by the way, freaking bizarre.
Very strange,
right?
Yeah.
Your athletic director getting into it physically and verbally with a player.
Over a shirt?
Well, and just that sounds insane. That somebody who is in a position of that caliber would even be in a position to make a comment as a player is running by or something, and they feel like it's their spot to be like, let me tell you something, right? However that thing went down, it looks bad, but the reason it comes out is because people don't want them there. Yeah. So if people don't want you there, then what happens? The rest of the season they go, I hope we get our freaking butts kicked, and I'll make sure that it happens.
They want change.
It's crazy because then they're like, hey, well, the only way this thing's going to get turned around for us to start winning is if these guys start losing really, really badly, and then we can really put the screws to them, and then we'll get them all fired.
I'm glad you're saying that because I'm looking at the standings.
They're 5-4.
We went right with the tone that Zach came in with. I get it. He's engrossed in it. He's in the middle of it. It feels bleak down in Waco.
It's depression right now.
They're 5-4. They're 3-3 in conference play.
I know.
Would you rather be UCF, whose butt you just kicked, who's 4-5 and 1-5 in conference?
Think about teams
Baylor's in the middle.
Think about teams like Iowa State.
That's what the problem is, Alex.
Yeah,
is the people down there want Baylor back at the top. They're in the middle, and that's why they want change.
Teams that they're ahead of in the standings, by the way, Kansas State, Iowa State, Kansas, those three programs right there by themselves, you look at and you go, man, in any given year, you would be
Baylor
absolutely
beat Kansas State.
They would be excited to be ahead of these teams in the standings at any given time. But it's the problem is that when certain people decide this isn't the guy anymore, and actually, you know what? If that's going to be the case, we have to make sure that that's the case. It's easier to fire a guy when they are 5-7.
Oh yeah.
Than it is to say, hey, they were 8-4, but that's just not what we do down here.
Look at what West Virginia did.
Of course.
They had to wait a season because the coach won too much.
Neil Brown was doing too well. And even last year they were like, this is going to be as bad as it gets. All right, you're fired. And it was because – but again, it was –
Rich Rod's not doing any better.
Doing worse.
Right.
I mean, the reality is that they got that who did they beat a couple weeks ago that you were like, oh, it's Houston.
Houston.
So they beat Houston. That was their first Big 12 win of the year, like 2 weeks ago. And you're right. You're exactly right. If you have a narrative in your head of how you want this thing to go – the people who wanted Rich Rod back, the people who wanted Scott Frost back, the people who want Dave Aranda gone, they'll kind of do whatever they need to do to be able to make that happen. And so we make all sorts of crazy excuses, right? Like, oh, that's good. Well, Mack Rhoades, I think he punched a guy. Like that. You start to get into it. He's not doing himself any favors. He's not doing himself any favors, by the way, standing in front of and I mean, I read the transcript to you last night while it was going. It was 58 you-knows, which, of course, means that he doesn't know. Like, he gets in front of the thing and he goes, man, I mean, we think, Notre Dame, is a really good team, And you're like, Mac, you're not doing a good job for this thing, man.
And here's the other problem is you hear that story about that guy, and then that guy's the chair of the committee?
I know.
Do we have the right people in the room?
But, see, that's why you go – this is happening down at his school, and yet he's the committee guy, and then everybody who's down at the school goes –
We're supposed to trust this?
And everybody at the school goes, oh yeah, and I'll tell you right now, too, he has no response when they start asking about, hey, why is BYU taking such a big tumble? Well, what we felt was – and he kind of did this backhanded like, hey, you're welcome, by the way. We put Texas Tech and BYU right by each other in the high up in the rankings, and so you should enjoy that this weekend. It's like, dude, do you hear yourself? Do you hear yourself? Nobody wants a guy up there who's just up there serving himself. And at the very least, like he does not have the marketability right now on his side. It's not going to be good. There's no way this guy's going to last very long in Baylor. We'll take a break here. We'll come back. We got more around the corner. Don't want to miss it. Top of the hour, by the way, Cole Bagley, our Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com, is going to join us, give us a thought on how this this game against the Buffalo Sabres, coming home tonight to Delta Center. The boys are certainly excited to be back at home, considering how those last few games went on the road up in the Great White North. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We've got more to go around the corner. 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.
All the latest news and notes from the league and the locals in the NFL. JJ and Alex bring you the NFL Blitz on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. JJ and Alex in 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone. Thanks for being with us on the program today. You know what that music means, of course, bringing you the daily NFL Blitz here. Yes, the sport that we love the most here in these beautiful United States of America. We were just having this conversation about how Dave Aranda doesn't fit in as a coach there at Baylor. And by the way, if you missed any of our conversation with Zach Smith, who covers Baylor for the Waco Tribune, awesome to listen to, because it doesn't sound like people are very excited about this Baylor team. And these guys who are covering the team, like, they kind of reflect that too. They're like, yeah, I think it's just kind of Mack Rhoades sort of lived his life out and his time frame here at Baylor. And, Dave Aranda's kind of a Mack Rhoades guy, so do the math. People don't love the way that he approaches stuff. They want a Coach Prime type guy. They want a Joey McGuire type guy. They want somebody who stands up. I mean, Sonny Dykes fits right into that role. Yeah. A guy who's like a perfect interview from like a media standpoint.
Guy, but
listen, I'm going to tell you how we're going to approach this. It just is. They love to have that guy, and like Dave Aranda is just a guy who he is like a brilliant defensive mind in college football. We've talked about how sometimes the coordinators just don't have what it takes to be the full head coach, and it feels like people are using that narrative too to be like, yeah, he's a good guy and everything, but I just don't think he fits in here, and you're going, oh my gosh. I mean, and careful what you wish for, Baylor, because you'll have to go out there, and this is not a great year to go out and dip in to try to find Power 4 coaches that want to come in and make a name for themselves. They want to do that in the SEC programs that are available. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get the guy who comes and head coaches you over the guy who wants to go and be the head coach at Auburn, despite the fact that maybe you would have more success at Baylor. You're in the cradle of football civilization, down there to be able to recruit out of it. It's crazy. Anyway. Hey, by the way, we were talking about Matt LaFleur and we were talking about him and Kyle Shanahan, right? Like two guys who you wouldn't have expected to be struggling so much. These are the kinds of stories that come out, and like there's an angle to it. So this story that came out that talks about Matt LaFleur and his current play calling situation. When people go, hey man, why don't you give up the play calling? And that's a hard thing because and then he says, no, I'm not going to give up the play calling. I'm an offensive coordinator. I'm an offensive genius. I'm not going to give it up. And when people are saying, yeah, but why are you the one calling the plays right now? Why don't you hand those duties off? That's a tough spot to be in. He says he's not giving up those duties, calling the plays. You kind of get what you get with Matt LaFleur. And right now it's been probably the biggest struggle that he's had in Green Bay. It's a weird spot to be in because then everybody starts to ask you to give up your play calling duties and just be a head coach. And then after that, you wonder what the vibe is on how long they want you to stay there as a head coach. It's a weird place right now the Packers fans are in, JJ.
Yeah, so Jordan Love hasn't thrown a touchdown pass since October 26th.
That is a weird stat.
That's 2 straight weeks without a touchdown pass. So that's part of the problem is that offense is just not productive enough.
Yeah, it's one thing to lose to Philly. It's another to only score 7 points. It's another thing to lose to Carolina.
Yes.
2 weeks ago, right?
And to lose 16-13 against the team that just lost to who? The Saints. Okay?
Ooh.
The Packers are struggling, and that's not the team that we saw blow out Detroit in Week 1, blow out the Commanders in Week 2, that looked like a powerhouse. And even they had that run with the win over Cincinnati, Arizona, and Pittsburgh, where they scored 27, 27, and 35 points. Yeah. This is back-to-back weeks where they're struggling to get in the end zone, and that's where the frustration is. Now, do you abandon a guy that's had top offenses for the last 5 years under his watch in LaFleur? That seems like a bit of an overreaction, and everyone's overreacting to what's happened to the Packers here in the month of November. But it is not good, and Jordan Love has not been good the last 2 weeks, and he's got to own that. LaFleur's got to own his play calling. They'll have to figure that out. But the Packers, this might be a little bit of an overreaction, I think, with LaFleur and everything. I can't imagine. It's just not the Packers' way to overreact. I think it's coming from outside the organization, not from within. I don't think LaFleur's in trouble, and I think Jordan Love's fine. They just got to get it figured out.
Speaking of drama inside franchise, how about the Giants? Oh, Jameis Winston getting the nod for the start. That's what we all wanted, right?
I don't understand why Russell Wilson was the guy in the first place. And as soon as Dable leaves, what happens? Does that make sense? Feels like everybody in the building knew that Jameis probably would have been the better option all along. Now, Jameis is more prone to throwing interceptions, but it's like a high risk, high reward because Jameis can also make some incredible plays with his arm. And I know that Russell Wilson has had his moments and can do that too, but those days of him doing it consistently are long gone. If Jackson Dart can't play, it makes sense that Jameis gets a start over Russell Wilson because Russell Wilson, when he's bad, he's really, really, really bad. And he cost him that game when he had to come in. You got to be ready to go. And Russell Wilson did not get it done in a game where the Giants had a nice lead and they blew it. And that's why Dable is no longer employed. It's not because of anything else other than the fact that the Giants have blown big leads this year. Multiple. I think 4 games they lost when they led by led by double digits. They have to get better play out of the quarterback position. Russell Wilson wasn't getting it done. And just as selfishly, Jameis is just fun.
Yeah, I was going to say.
He's just always doing something that's going to be fun.
He's become the most lovable.
I want post-game Jameis Winston interviews.
I know.
That's what I want.
He's become this lovable non-starter, like the lovable backup.
Yeah.
And that's, by the way, if you just want a long career of being a guy that people like, go be a backup.
It's quite a turnaround for a guy who, by all accounts, had character issues early on in his career.
For sure.
And now guys talk about how incredible he is.
Right.
Which is a tribute to him for figuring some things out and changing his life and changing the way he handles his business.
Think about how he approaches it. He's like, I want to be here, and I want to teach Jackson Dart how to be a good pro. That's what people want to hear, you know? Not the guy who goes, well, I should be the starter.
Is that what Jameis would have said his second or third year in the league? Probably not, right?
No. He'd be, I'm the guy. Think about the disaster they have right now in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Right? And you've got massive egos that are massively insecure. Jameis Winston, I don't feel like he's insecure. He goes, but at the same time he goes, I could be a starter in this league. I'm one of the best 32 quarterbacks on the planet. Put me in there. But he's accepted the idea that he's I'm this guy right now. And you know what's going to happen?
It's a major step in your life. Just not even just an NFL player, but all of us, to be so self-aware, to say this is what I am right now at this point period of my life.
Think about right now what
I'm no longer the man.
He's going to throw for 331 yards.
Yeah.
And 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and they're going to lose to the Packers.
Yeah.
And people are going to go, and they're going to go, hey man, you threw those 2 interceptions. One of them obviously gave the game away. That stuff I got to work on. I'm really dedicated to working on that this week, and I want to get better. And you're like, oh, I love this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I'm telling you, he's going to have big numbers. He's going to be way better than Russ for sure, because Russell Wilson gets in there and goes, I'll roll out real quick.
Let's ride.
I'll roll out.
He's so aloof.
And then everybody's like, hey man, you don't have that rolling out ability anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have the footwork that used to be the thing. And I'm sad for Russ because he had to put a statement out that says, I'm not going to get released. I've not asked for a release. I want to be here. But I'll tell you what he doesn't want to be is the third-string quarterback.
Right.
Even Russell Wilson goes.
It's a future Hall of Famer that now has to accept his fate currently, and it's not easy for him to do.
Does it end up ruining that Hall of Fame status going forward?
How does that happen? How bad would you have to perform after you've – there was a period of time where Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback in the league, won a Super Bowl. Didn't he win an MVP?
No, that was Cam That was Cam Newton, for sure. Oh no,
he's never won.
He's never won.
He's never received a single vote. So I take that back. I guess he felt like he was overlooked. He led the NFL in touchdown passes in 2017. There was a period of time where the Seahawks.
How do you not get a vote when you lead the league in touchdown passes?
I have no idea.
That's weird.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
But he had a period of time where you would consider him one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the league over multiple years.
1,000%. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We got our top 10 next. Before we get out, though, want to remind you that the Hercules Hero of the Week program is an awesome program that all year long we honor the people who do an amazing job covering the youth sports or helping volunteer for the youth sports in your community. And even if they're not volunteering, even if they're like an assistant coach at the high school or at the middle school, whatever it might be, we want to honor those people who do a great job with our youth in teaching them great sportsmanship and doing an awesome job and dedicating extra time. If they're a coach, if they're an official, if they're a team mom, somebody who goes above and beyond with the youth sports in their community, all you have to do is go to KSLSports.com/contest and nominate a youth sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week program. And they win a prize from Hercules First Federal Credit Union and from Beehive Meals. So nominate that person today at KSLSports.com/contest. I've got a top 10 for you here next. Stay with us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Let's go! Complete game coverage of the Cougars is right here on the KSL Sports Zone. The Cougars return home for a battle against TCU. Your home for the best coverage of Cougar football is right here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You're locked on to JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, welcome back, everybody. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I got a short top 10 here for you, and it's really not going to be asking for a full top 10 as much as I'm going to ask you. JJ, you ready for a bit of
yes.
top 10 trivia here? The Utah Jazz last night scoring 152. Where does that land in franchise history of points scored in a regular season game?
In Jazz history?
In Jazz history.
3rd.
I'm sorry, but it's 4th.
Oh.
And you know why?
Why?
Because you didn't incorporate the New Orleans Jazz.
Oh.
My bad. Got him.
My bad.
Got him. Yes, but you are correct. It's 3rd in Utah Jazz history.
Okay.
They had 2 154-point games. One of them came last year.
Makes sense.
Does it?
Well, because the NBA is scoring more points now than ever.
It does. Yeah. And this team, put it on the list, man. They scored 152 last night. If you had on your bucket or on your bingo card, this Jazz team would be one of the struggle bus teams in the history of the team in the team's history, but be able to score over the past season. So they won 18 games last year, right? Or was it 17? 17 games last
17.
year. And then we go, okay, you win 17 games, but you're also going to have one of the highest scores in the history of your franchise. You're the number one scoring game of your. Now, here's something about that the New Orleans Jazz game that they scored 153 in to be the 3rd most in history, because they did 154 twice, 1 in 21, 1 in 24, and then 1978 they scored 153 points against the against the San Antonio Spurs. George Gervin had 65 points in that game.
Wow.
And they lost to the Jazz by 20. There were 8 Jazzmen in double figures. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't recognize hardly any of them.
I bet.
There was no, Pistol Pete. There wasn't
It wasn't exactly a golden age of NBA basketball.
Right. There's a reason
in
the franchise.
New Orleans in the late 70s.
There's a reason the franchise had to shift around. So there you go. All right, Aaron is joining us here. By the way, of course you would know that. I feel like if
we had to know the stat last night.
I was going to say you probably had to report it last night.
Yes.
Hey, 152 points in a regular season game, not in overtime.
Right.
That's a big deal. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll chat with Cole Bagley, our Utah Mammoth insider for KSLSports.com. I have a list of questions for him, for Coach Tourney, things that have been popping up on my mind, and also one of my close friends is like, "Hey man, if you're asking Cole questions today, ask him this." So no easy answers this week.
The Utah Mammoth. What is the deal?
Get out of here. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll chastise ourselves for saying that at the same time, and we'll come back. More to go right here at 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.